Aunt Jemima completely exploded since it first came out and became a household brand and name. However, recently it has been exposed for its racism. A lot of people have been saying we should boycott this syrup, but what I don't hear a lot of people talking about is the spirituality behind this syrup. How this syrup actually exposes the Hebrew origins of slaves in America. But before we address that, we have to address the origins of Aunt Jemima. Now the origins. The name and image of Aunt Jemima were drawn from the histories of both American slavery and minstrel shows in America. The name came from a minstrel song dating to 1875 called Old Aunt Jemima.
His clothes, got to take 'em in the house.
The image was that of what has been called the mammy, a popular trope of an enslaved older black woman who cooked and cleaned for her white owners, apparently quite content with her lot in life. It was represented by a dark-skinned, heavy-set woman of interdeterminate age who wore an apron and a bandana as a headscarf, with a broad smile and exaggerated teeth. The founder of Aunt Jemima, this person went even as far as to assembling black women to advertise the product who would fit into this stereotype of Aunt Jemima.
Who's gonna kill the high stepness roosted in the yard and a great big bowl of milk gravy and grit and waffles? Don't you worry none, honey. You's home now. Miss Rose home. Miss Rose.
What is the purpose of blackface? The purpose of Aunt Jemima, the minstrel shows, and every other means that was used to mock African Americans.
You know, Cotton, I'm making a picture called The Lion Tamer.
The lion tamer?
Uh-huh.
There ain't but one kind of lion I'll mess with.
What kind's that?
Ooh, that's a dandelion.
I want to get a moving picture of you in the lion's cage.
Well, if you ever do get a picture of me in a lion's cage, you'll be moving all right.
Oh, Cotton, the lion can't hurt you.
Can't hurt me. I know, but he can make me hurt myself.
Why, the lion's tame. He'll eat right off your hand.
Eat off of your hand and off of your leg, too. I know them cats.
But you don't understand, Cotton.
What is the reasoning behind Aunt Jemima? To understand that, we have to look and see where did the name Jemima come from. It said Jemima, biblical daughter of Job, from the Hebrew Jemima'S, literally dove. The Aunt Jemima ready-mixed food products in the U.S. was advertised from c. 1918. It goes into detail about the product, but what really caught my attention is the fact that this name, Jemima, this is a Hebrew name. So many different slave women were called by this name, Jemima, Aunt Jemima, 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 Jemima. They were called by this name in Hebrew as a form of mockery. They used the very same language that these people spoke to mock them. And evidence that slaves in America could speak and read in Hebrew is the simple fact that the very first Baptist church in Savannah, Georgia had Hebrew writings in the pews that was built by Hebrew slaves, because they always say, well, they didn't know how to read and write. And that's true, because they were denied that opportunity to read and write in English, but they knew perfectly how to read and write in Hebrew. So really this was done as a means to hide our true identity as being the Hebrews of the scripture. They used our very identity as mockery. As I've shared before, all of the names on the slave locks, they are of Hebrew origin. You can look up these names. You can look up the fact that some had names like Yehuda, some had names like Judah, Yafi, Yaqua, Ya'abah. So many different names on these slave locks, which is why they made an effort to change it. But the one time that they did call a slave by a Hebrew name, they used it in the form of a mockery. That is prophetic. Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 36. The Lord will exile you and your king to a nation unknown to you and your ancestors. There in exile you will worship gods of wood and stone. What's very interesting about this, as I mentioned in a different video, is that the kingdom of Judah was the area of Africa that during the slave trade we were actually captured from the most. But it was renamed Slave Coast because they wanted to hide the truth about who we were. We even established a kingdom in Ghana. Ghana is actually a Hebrew word that means chief. and we were captured from Ghana as well, and also in the kingdom of Judah. The coronation of King Hafan. The engraving depicts the coronation of King Hafan. This was produced by Dutch engraver Jacob van der Sklee. Widda was a kingdom that faced challenges from Dahomey, and by the way, another name for Widda, as we just saw, is Judah. It says, despite this, the kingdom was seeing an economic boom from trade with Europe. But then if you go all the way down, it says Dahomey took over in 1727. King Hafan would be the last king of Widda, and this is when it turned into a slave coast. Originally, the children of Judah, to escape persecution from Jerusalem by the Romans, they established this royal kingdom in West Africa, but the Dahomey people, they took over. And the movie Woman King, it sort of exposes this. It shows you how the children of Ham were selling the children of Judah into slavery when they had control and they had the power. And you would see how they would sell some of their fellow black brothers and sisters to these European powers. There's a scripture in the book of Joel as well where it says that they have sold a boy for wine that they might drink. And so these are some of the things that slaves would be sold in exchange for wine. It says the date of his formal coronation has been disputed. Sources list him coming to the throne in 1708. However, other sources claim the coronation happened years later. So he was the last king, but this does not mean that he was the only king. And more evidence for the people that try to say that, oh, when it says Widda, that's not the same as Judah, down here you can see. And then in the old map, you can see as well. So they even had power and succession over our king, as the scripture has said. And then when you continue to read, it says, and you will become an astonishment, a proverb, a byword. Now notice how it says you will become an astonishment. People will be shocked at your condition, and you will also be a proverb. In the book of Proverbs, it gives us wisdom and advice. But here he's saying that when people look at you, you will be an example of what not to be. It says, and you will be a byword, because they have called us every single name other than who we actually are. N-word, colored, coon, all sorts of different things. Among all the nations, whither the Lord shall lead you. And then when you read it in the NLT, it says you will become an object of horror, ridicule, and mockery among all the nations to which the Lord sends you. So he said you will become an object of horror and ridicule. They did some pretty horrific things, and in fact, one of the saddest stories was the story of Sarah Bartman, where white men, they put her body on display for pleasure and entertainment, and there's even some history of black children being put in zoos. All sorts of horrible things that were done in the name of entertainment. It says, and mockery among all the nations to which the Lord sends you. The minstrel shows, the blackface, all of these things did the Most High say was going to come upon us. Aunt Jemima. All of this mockery and this hatred was done just so we would never discover exactly who it is that we are.